Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
And good Tuesday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It is the 5th of July, and as always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information on our websites. And for the last several weeks, we've been reminding you that our websites are about to change. Some things are going to happen tomorrow morning that we expect will probably interrupt your service, at least briefly. We'd like to make sure it's not a permanent thing. So today or tonight, make sure that you go check out our preview page so you can see what things are going to do, what they look like. And then after tomorrow, once those changes have occurred, you're going to want to reset your bookmarks. Your old bookmarks may not work anymore. And a lot of the information will certainly be the same, but it's going to have a new look and feel to it. And we hope it's one that benefits you and your community and village in making better weather decisions no matter where you are. The Weather Info line is open at 800-472-0391. You can find information about this change on Facebook. Hopefully you've already seen that this afternoon. Watch Twitter as well if you'd like to ask us questions about how do I get to my climate log. You can do that on Twitter very easily, and we'll certainly see that. You can use the hashtag AKwx as well. The folks in Fairbanks and Juneau and Anchorage will be standing by to answer your questions and making sure that we're ready to guide you to the weather information that you trust. And we hopefully it won't be a difficult experience for anyone, of course. Here are those websites that we encourage you to try out. w2.weather.gov is the main chunk for the beta test site through tonight and early tomorrow. After tomorrow, this won't work anymore. You can just go to the regular old place at weather.gov/Anchorage, weather.gov/Fairbanks, weather.gov/Juneau. Those will work tomorrow. But if you want to check it out tonight, these are the websites to try again before tomorrow. What's going to change? We're localizing your weather forecast. So when you want to see weather information for Bethel, you will get a 3-kilometer by 3-kilometer forecast for that very specific area, rather than a whole broad area for the Kuskokwim Delta that we referred to at the Weather Office as a zone forecast, which is averaging out all the village's weather information for that very broad area when you really want to look at just Bethel. Or if it's Fairbanks or Wasilla or Girdwood, if you want to localize your information for your part of town, whether you're next to the mountains or next to the coast, next to the valley or next to the hills, you can do that. And by localizing it with our new weather information available on weather.gov/Anchorage/Fairbanks or /Juneau, that should make your life so much better, and the weather will apply a whole lot more to what you're seeing rather than wondering, well, why did they say it was going to rain when the rain's way over there? This should help that problem. Now, let's move on to the current weather at hand here, because we've talked about the websites for weeks, and we're ready to talk about the weather again and show you the really cool website tomorrow. As we go into the upper Kuskokwim Delta around Nikolai, flooding is being reported. The river's come up about 6 feet or so in the last 24 hours or so. Several inches of rain have fallen there. And as we understand it, the low water crossing going to the dump is underwater there, so there could be some other fluctuations, and the river could continue to rise. We're expecting that to crest here in the next day or so. So be advised that flooding is occurring along the river around Nikolai there in the upper Kuskokwim. And because of that, a flood advisory is in effect until at least 12:45 on Wednesday. Now, if you've got information or pictures that you'd like to share with us, you can do that on Facebook or Twitter. Talk to your friends and contacts there at the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, folks in Nikolai. Know those folks well, so we appreciate the information and your reports anytime. Even if you think it's just a minor change, we love to know about that. That helps us do our jobs and give you that information wherever you are, and helps us do our forecast a lot better. So thank you to everyone in Nikolai reporting that today. Here's a look at the fire danger. Does this look a little bit different than the last several days? I think so. Around the northwestern sections of Alaska, in Kotzebue Sound to Red Dog Mine, down to about Kotzebue and Kivalina, we still have some dry patches there around the upper Yukon Valley there, and then also around Haines. We're still talking about some drier or high fire danger. But most areas have seen the fire danger greatly reduced thanks to the sloppy and wet pattern. If not wet, maybe just damp for many in southwest and south central and the interior. So it may not be the summer you want, but it could be the summer we need across many parts of the last frontier. Here's a look at the satellite picture now. The visible satellite's what we're checking out right now, and you can see the broad south and westerly slosh of moisture pumping into most of the interior, southwest Alaska for sure, south central. Southeast has been a little bit on the drier run with this. It's not to say you're not getting periods of light rain or drizzle from time to time. You certainly are. But it's not the great onslaught of moisture crossing the Gulf of Alaska and plowing into southeast panhandle. So a lot of that's being received in the interior, south central, southwest, and Kodiak Island. Some of that's been making its way north as well, as evident by the fire danger map we just saw. Certainly some abatement of the dry conditions in that regard. Looking at the infrared satellite picture, you can see that swirl of moisture a little bit more clearly. Here it is. The center of low pressure in the upper atmosphere is guiding a lot of this moisture across. And we do have some weaker waves of low pressure that are just hovering across the Gulf in the upper levels of the atmosphere as well. You'll see that reflected in the freezing level chart with that cool pool of air. I believe it's down to about 6,000 to 8,000 feet here. Elsewhere, it's about 8, 10, even 12,000 feet across other parts of Alaska as that hot air is moving up and over that zone of low pressure here in the Gulf of Alaska. Watch the loop with me one more time, and you can see that general motion pushing that wave of energy from southwest to north and east. Now, all of this is a little bit of a different beast. Everything that you see kind of bubbling up here, those are showers and thunderstorms. And everywhere, say, north of Northway to Fairbanks to Kotzebue, this has all been convective or upward moving air rather than the gentle, sloppy, damp kind of rain that we've been seeing across southwest, south central, and at times making its way into southeast. This is all thunderstorm activity here, so we'll still keep an eye on new fire starts, or at least the potential of that throughout the next 24 hours as that activity continues. And there we have it marked in with those R-like symbols there with a little pointy arrow down at the bottom indicating lightning. Today's weather map shows colder air up north. That's trying to advance southward. That's really going to wash out in the next 24 hours. There's another wave that you'll see crossing the Chukchi Sea in the next 2 to 3 days. Low pressure sitting offshore of southeastern Alaska. Fairly dry conditions here at times. The ceilings drop down a little bit, but that's to be expected for southeast, right? Low pressure north and northwest of Nunivak Island, south of the Bering Strait at 1,006 millibars. That's a fairly weak wave, but enough to keep the clouds building up there across the eastern Bering Sea and Bristol Bay. As we head into tonight, there's a cooler air trying to move itself toward the Bering Strait. More than anything, you'll continue to see areas of light rainfall and showers across the interior, southwest, some periods of showers there. Pockets of light rain are possible in southeast. That will be the rule for the next several days. And high pressure south of Nikolsky and Unalaska and Dutch Harbor at 1,023 millibars may lock in some low clouds and fog across the north and western Gulf through the chain, and you'll also see a chance for fog from Point Barrow all the way through the Bering Strait. Heading into Wednesday, showers and thunderstorms should be back, especially for the higher terrain and the interior. Remember that boundary that we saw kind of holding back a lot of the showers and the rain for west and southwest Alaska, including south central, and northeast was a lot more active. That'll probably be the case again on Wednesday. We may see a slightly more expansive area of thunderstorm activity a little bit farther south tomorrow. Out west, low pressure is working into the North Pacific at 1,000 millibars. That is also going to push a front toward the central and western chain, so the winds are going to switch around on you out there. Across southeastern Alaska, a few areas of light rain will probably be a little more expansive tomorrow, and high pressure still sitting pretty out in the western Gulf at 1,025 millibars. That shifts slightly eastward on Thursday. Showers are back in the forecast for southeast. Showers and thunderstorms are a little bit more likely for more parts of the western Alaska range up through Denali, the Parks Highway, and into the interior. And showers will start to ease up a little bit more across western and northern Alaska with a trough of low pressure that's still kind of snaking its way back into the Yukon. And there's that very slow-moving front moving across the Chukchi. This is going to reach northwestern Alaska probably on Friday, but high pressure is slowing that down. It's still sitting across the Arctic Ocean at 1,015 millibars. Meanwhile, the low will work into the southern Bering. That front should reach into St. Paul and St. George Thursday afternoon and evening. Behind that, areas of light rain and drizzle and a little bit of a wind shift for you, as you would expect. Here's a look at temperatures today. We saw 50s and 60s across southeast. Haines and Skagway were in the lower 60s. The capital city about 62. Sitka 61. 50s and 60s for Ketchikan and Annette. 61 in Hyder. Around Prince William Sound, a cooler, grayer day. Highs only in the mid-50s today. 55 in Kenai and about the same there around Anchorage. Low to mid-60s from Squentin northward toward Talkeetna. Just shy of 70 at 2 o'clock in Fairbanks. 68 in Eagle. About 70 in Northway. That was 70 in Fort Yukon. Northward we go, and Arctic Village was only 59 at 2 o'clock. 40s and 50s for the Arctic coast. Kaktovik 43, Atkasuk was 47, Kivalina 52, Shishmaref saw 46 degrees and 53 degrees in Nome. St. Lawrence Island saw temps anywhere from the mid to upper 40s to about 50 degrees this afternoon. Ammonit closer to 55, Unalakleet about 56. And McGrath, 60 degrees there on the Kuskokwim River, 55 downriver in Bethel. Nunivak Island was closer to 54. Bristol Bay temperatures range from the upper 50s there from King Salmon and Dillingham. Then you got out down the coast a little bit more toward Cold Bay and False Pass, and you're back into the mid-50s for many. 55 in Kodiak Island, mid-50s for Adak and Atka. St. Paul was 51, and it was a cooler 48 in Shemya. Now, overnight low temperatures will be the warmest in the upper Yukon Valley and the Yukon Flats, closer to 60 degrees in fact for many locations there. The interior will be mild with lower to mid-50s for many, including the middle Tanana Valley, places all the way down the road to North Pole and then eventually to Tok. Look for south central temperatures at around Cook Inlet in the upper 40s to low 50s, southeast lower to mid-50s. Kodiak Island 51, upper 40s and lower 50s for the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. Southwest and the YK Delta in the upper 40s to low 50s for most of the coastal regions, 47 in Nome. Kotzebue Sound temperatures could be a little bit cooler like Shishmaref, only 43, and upper 30s for the North Slope with Barrow and Wainwright just shy of 40 degrees. Highs there tomorrow will jump back into the 50s and 60s. Shishmaref, you're looking at about 52, 56 in Nome. The YK Delta in the mid to upper 50s, even lower 60s for many. Bristol Bay temperatures closer to 60 in Dillingham and King Salmon. Kodiak, you're looking at 58. Southeast, lower to mid 60s for the daytime. And Prince William Sound expect highs in the lower 60s. Anchorage close to 62 and nearly 70 around Fairbanks with Unalaska and Dutch Harbor about 54 with St. Paul right at 50 degrees. On to flying weather now. IFR conditions are expected to start the day in Prince William Sound out into the Gulf and closing in on Sitka and just points southward there. Most of the inner channels there for southeast, looking at MVFR to start your day, as well as many along some of the passes near Teneda and the northern and western passes of the Alaska Range. Watch for MVFR along the Bering Sea coast, as well as IFR conditions for Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, and into places like Cape Newenham and most of the Bering Sea coast, as well as the North Slope. By the afternoon, conditions should improve or at least a little bit there. MVFR conditions for many along the Bering Sea coast will continue, as well as Bristol Bay and along the north and western parts of the Alaska Range. IFR conditions will pull away a little bit from southeast, but notice it's still just south of Sitka and into some of the entrances there to the inner channels. Out across the North Slope, IFR will linger very close to the coast and continue for the central and western chain. Pass conditions then, Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass look to be A-OK VFR conditions, but we're watching for thunderstorm activity tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass probably holding around MVFR through most of the day, watching for showers and storms there and in Rainy and Windy Pass as well. MVFR conditions should continue there. Isabel Pass, we expect to see MVFR through most of the day. Showers and thunderstorms may build up. Mentasta Pass looks to be one of the more clear passes right now. Showers and thunderstorms are possible in that general area. Tenita Pass will see improvement during the day with showers and thunderstorms likely around the Talkeetnas. And Portage Pass, we expect to see IFR conditions to start the day with ceilings and visibility improving as the day goes on. Chilkoot and White Pass, as you saw, probably holding at MVFR with IFR not too far away. Morning freezing levels, well, there's a cool spot, and you can see that hovering across the Gulf down to 8,000 feet. Here's the cooler pool, though, that's developing under that central area of circulation at 6,000 feet. Levels across most of the interior and southeast hover around 8 to 10,000 feet. Now, remember, all of these images tomorrow will be on our new website for the TV desk page there. You can find that at weather.gov/Anchorage. Icing potential shows light to isolated moderate across southeast around the southern part of the Cook Inlet region, Kodiak Island, and parts of the YK Delta and the interior. Above 9,000 feet for many locations there, above 10,000 feet out west and across southeast. As we look at the jet stream, low pressure is sitting right across the west coast, and on the backside of that's where we find the faster moving winds most of the time. Those are running around 55 knots, so it's not that strong, but it is just strong enough to pull in more moisture and energize that flow. The main corridor of fast moving air is sitting right across the Gulf and the North Pacific, but you can see colder airs digging southward across eastern Asia. We'll keep an eye on that one. At 9,000 feet, southwesterlies are moving across the Bering Strait at about 15 knots. A general south and southwesterly flow is found across most of the interior, and it's very light, a little bit faster out over the open water as you would expect, 25 to about 30 knots in most areas. At 3,000 feet, we have a very light flow working up the eastern Gulf and close to southeast. That's only about 5 knots. Light winds across the interior, the fastest winds close to land, around 15 to 20 knots for the north and western parts of the Brooks Range and the Bering Strait. Look for a southerly flow coming into the central chain and becoming westerly as it moves up towards St. Paul and St. George, about 20 to 25 knots. Turbulence potential, there's not a whole lot there. Again, we're looking at areas that are generally light to isolated moderate at worst. Probably just light chop there from the eastern part of the Aleutians to the southern tip of the Alaska Peninsula and a little bit further west from Kiska to, well, not quite Attu there, below 4,000 feet. That's a look at your aviation forecast. We'll be back with the rest of your marine weather and a sea ice update here in just a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Mr. Bale. One of the nicest things about this business is the fact that you meet so many great people and become really good friends over the years. And it just happens that Mr. Bale is one of those people who I consider one of my great friends. Mo is from Transport Canada. He never turns us down unless he's got a conflict in a schedule. And we've had him up here, excuse me, several times. We always just enjoy him thoroughly. And with that, I'll say, welcome back again, Mo.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny. Very kind introduction. It does kind of set a pace that may be difficult to keep up with here, but we'll do the best that we can. It's gratifying to see so many faces in the group today. Nice for pilots to all get together and share ideas, I guess. I better get some electronic wizardry started here and remind me not to look into that light again. Wow. My name is Mo Bale. I'm what they call a regional aviation safety officer. When you work for the federal government in Canada, you get called a lot of different things, okay? Believe me. But I'm going to accept Mo, so you can just call me that if you like, and I would appreciate that. Now, the regional aviation safety officer, the region that I'm specifically tasked with developing and presenting programs such as this, is not unique, but there's a reason why I'm here, and one of those reasons is that my region borders on Alaska. It also borders on Montana, and I do similar programs for them in the lower 48. The region is bordered by the Alcan Highway, okay, so that it falls entirely within my region. That's one of the ways that it's set up geographically. So I cover all of the province of Alberta, the western half of the Northwest Territories and the Arctic, all of the Yukon Territory, and a little northeastern corner of British Columbia. They like to think of themselves as being Albertans anyway. And we do too. They're pretty good. Now the branch that I work for in Transport Canada is called the System Safety Branch. We used to be called Aviation Safety Programs, but because of some changes to the, not specific duties, but some additional requirements of our branch within, they found that the name System Safety was probably defined our duties just a little bit more accurately. The closest liaison that I have is exactly with Joel Wilcox with safety programs with the FAA. That's a very close comparison. The mission that I have is similar as well, and it's a mission that's probably shared by most pilots, actually, whether you think of it that way or not. And it's to actively search for safety hazards and develop programs of accident prevention. I have a lot of people helping me to do that, people inside the department and people outside the department as well, the sharing of information, if you would. The presentation tonight deals with safety. It deals with judgment, primarily pilot judgment. So that's where the focus is going to be. But to begin with, I'd like to put up a definition of safety, where the responsibilities lie, if you would, that it is in fact the responsibility of the flight crew, and more specifically, and in most cases, the pilot in command. The definition here infers that there's a skill requirement, that as a skilled pilot gains experience through the years, their ability to exercise good judgment will increase. And that's true. I concentrate on judgment and the decision-making type of thing, judgment being the key element in the decision-making process, but not to the exclusion of attaining and maintaining a very high degree of skill in your chosen field, your endeavor. The stick and rudder skills, all the other skills that go along with flying an airplane must be there first, and then you use those as a basis to make good judgments. Occasionally, and when I say occasionally, it's rare, but it happens, that pilots will use the word judgment as an excuse for not maintaining a high level of skill. You really cannot trade one for the other, if you can get my understanding. You have to attain and maintain that high level of skill first. So please do that and ensure that it's there as well. And then, with experience, judgment becomes better. It's important for us as pilots to recognize that there's a very delicate balance that exists in our recreation or our field of career or whatever else it may be. Are there some professional pilots in the crowd, or pretty well all general aviation? Is there a mix? Who flies for a living? Couple? Anybody fly helicopters? Anybody a rotary wing pilot? Joel? Oh, sit up front so I don't have to talk loud. Okay? Yeah. Now, I hate to make jokes about helicopter pilots. They have enough trouble, don't they? All those moving parts. Holy cow.
Riveting. Here's a look at the sea ice edge, and you'll notice that the big ice pack is slowly working itself northward there. We're still seeing some concentrations around the shoals, but as that warmer water jets northward, it is really chewing away the Chukchi sea ice, and again, we're seeing more and more of that breaking up across the Beaufort Sea. You'll be able to find that on a new website at weather.gov/Anchorage tomorrow. Just look for the sea ice label down at the bottom of your screen. Here's a look at the forecast for southeast now in the marine areas. Light winds offshore and pretty variable throughout the day as well. 5 to as high as 15 knots. All seas on the outer coast around 5 knots. And 10 to 20 knot winds across the inner channels, with seas anywhere from 2 to as high as 4 feet in the Lynn Canal, with a stronger southerly flow at 20 knots. For Thursday, the winds push a little bit more from the north and west, looking at 10 knot winds with 2-foot seas. Still looking at pretty light flow on the outer coast, only 5 to 10 knots, and the winds that are moving in any general direction are generally northerly throughout the day, 4 to as high as 6-foot seas outside of the Dixon entrance, and southerlies diminish to 15 knots in the Lynn Canal with a 3-foot sea. For South Central, generally light and variable winds for most areas inside of Prince William Sound and across the north and western Gulf, 10 knots with a 4-foot sea. Southwesterlies on either side of Kodiak Island, 15 to 20 knots with 4 to 5-foot seas. And a general light southerly flow working up Cook Inlet, 10 to 15 knots with a 3 to 4-foot sea across the region on Wednesday. The winds are going to pick up a little bit more on Thursday. Southwesterlies in the Cook Inlet, 10 knots with 2-foot seas. Westerlies coming through the Barren Islands, 10 to 20, and 15 to 20 across Kodiak Island, 4 to as high as 6-foot seas there. Still looking at pretty light winds across the north and western Gulf, and inside of Prince William Sound, westerlies 10 knots with a 2-foot sea. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Across Bristol Bay, southwesterlies 25 knots with a 5-foot sea, and the southwesterlies on the Pacific coastline as well, 20 knots with a 6-foot sea. Looking at 7-foot seas north of Cold Bay, those diminish to 5-foot seas on Thursday. Westerlies coming into Bristol Bay at 20 knots with a 5-foot sea, and 15 to 20 knots across the Pacific coast with 5 to 6-foot seas on Thursday. For the Aleutians, a south and westerly flow for the central and eastern chain, but you can see a south and easterly flows building across the central and western parts of the islands. 25 to 30 knots out in the west with 9-foot seas expected there. 7-foot seas north of Unalaska and Nikolsky. Adak and Atka looking at 4 to 6-foot seas, and that'll stay about the same on Thursday, but you can see again that southwesterly flow is kind of losing the game here, becoming a little more southerly with time. 20 to 25 knots north of the central and eastern chain, 20 knots out in the east. And northerlies picking up there across Kiska to Attu at 20 knots with a 9-foot sea on Thursday. For the west coast, light winds around St. Lawrence Island, southwesterlies 10 knots, 3-foot seas there. Westerlies coming into the Pribilofs, 15 knots with a 5-foot sea, and about the same there for St. Matthew, smaller seas as you go north. For Thursday, winds are somewhat variable north of Nunivak Island, looking for 3-foot seas in the general vicinity. Westerlies coming into the Kuskokwim Delta, southwesterlies around St. Lawrence Island at 20 knots, and southeasterlies around the Pribilofs with a 20-knot wind with 4-foot seas. And for the north slope, generally light winds for all regions. Look for a 1-foot sea around Kaktovik with a 5-knot wind, if that, from the north and east. Otherwise 10 knots all the way down the Chukchi coast with an east and northeasterly flow down to Point Lay and more of an onshore flow coming into Kotzebue Sound at 10 knots with a 2-foot sea. Things are going to change a little bit though on Thursday with a stronger southerly push working out of the Bering Strait and up through the Chukchi Sea. 15 to 20 knots with a 4 to 5-foot sea. And looking for easterlies across the Beaufort Seacoast with 6-foot seas around Kaktovik in the eastern Beaufort Seacoast with a 20-knot wind. So again, Thursday is going to be a little bit of a rougher day, pretty much all areas across the North Slope coastline. Recapping tonight's weather, showers and a few thunderstorms will continue across the eastern interior in the Middle Tanana Valley, south and west, looking for a better chance of showers with low pressure parked just off your shore. Look for periods of rain and clouds for many in south central. That trend will continue and you'll see pockets of light rainfall across southeast. A better chance for more expansive but still light rain for southeast Wednesday and Thursday, and showers and thunderstorms along the Brooks Range slopes across the Alcan border and around the Talkeetnas and Chugach as we get into Wednesday afternoon. Another front's working its way up into the Aleutians. You'll see the wind switch around as a result of that on Thursday, and a more broad scope of showers and thunderstorms across the interior and especially the Alaska Range and Talkeetnas going into Thursday. That's a look at your Alaska weather. See you tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
From her rich and fertile valleys to the shores of her icy seas, from her fields and farms and shellfish beds and her many nurseries, for the finest of her flavor, for the freshest by far, choose the things Alaskans bring to the market where you are. Products that we're proud to call our own, and it's all Alaska grown.
The National Weather Service.